welcome. This is my 6-foot oceanic 220 gallon mixed reef saltwater fish tank. It's turning 3 years old here in a few weeks, and I'm going to show you today how to build this DIY 3D rock background. Hello YouTube. What we're looking at here is my fish tank, or more accurately a mock-up of my fish tank. This is just a piece of particle board or OSB that I cut to be the same inside dimensions as the 215 gallon fish tank I'm building. This is lava rocks that I bought from a landscaping supply company in town for 15 cents a pound, and it's sitting on top of regular egg crate or lighting diffuser I got from your big box supply store. The 2x4 in the back there is where the overflow goes. It's an external overflow, and that's the internal portion of it. This may not look like it's a lot of work. It's just like rocks piled on top of each other here. But most of these rocks have been cut, at least on one piece or the other, to make them fit like this. And that it's a little more difficult than it sounds, because you can see that the cuts show up quite a bit different than the rest of the rock is, so all the cuts have to be hid. There's also quite a few more rocks than are actually used in the display. Some larger ones back there. Got some medium-sized ones here. And then I got a bucket of, this is just a barbecue rock, again from Lowe's or Home Depot. To cut the rocks, I use this battery-powered DeWalt grinder. It's got the masonry blade on it, or the tile cutting blade. I use sanded grout as the mortar or the glue to hold the rocks together. The intent is to have kind of an L-shaped aquarium. One side is going to be close to the wall, and there also is a little bit of damage to the tank on the inside. So I colored around the side here. This is kind of what it looks like once it's done. You lay out your big rocks like this one here, and then just push in other of the smaller rocks into the sanded grout. They're in there pretty strong. This big rock here is not actually secured by the grout. It's just set in there for an indent, and then once I put these back into the actual tank, I'll silicone those in to hold them in place, and then I'll just put this large rock back in where the indent was, so it looked like it's built in there, but the grout is nowhere near strong enough for the bond to be able to hold that much weight, so rocks that size can't go in it. The missing section here in the middle is supposed to look like a cave when it's done. I'll paint the back of the tank black so it looks like you're looking into a deeper hole. Hope it makes it look like a larger dimension, the third dimension to it. And then I'll cover the overflow there as well. That's what that small piece of lighting diffuser there is for. This is 3 pieces because that black mark there over to that black mark there is where the center brace is. It's an oceanic tank. It has a 2-foot center brace, so all that space in the middle there, I can't just set things in from the top. So there'll be, the break on this side will be one piece, and then where this seam is will be a separate piece, and it's kind of shaped like a wedge there. One, to break up the visual lines of having a seam, and 2, I'll put that center piece in last, and it's kind of wedge shaped, so it will sit down on the other 2 pieces since there's nothing underneath it to support it from the bottom. There's also a little bit of a gap at the bottom of all the rocks, and that's because I intend to put more lighting diffuser on the bottom of the tank underneath the sand, so it won't be visible, but that'll protect the bottom of the glass from any falling rocks, or if any of these break off or whatever happens to be. It'll just protect the bottom of the tank. So there's a little bit of a gap underneath all of them to accommodate that 1/2-inch lighting diffuser. So I will, all I do is mix up the grout in a bucket, dump it in there, and then I wear gloves because the concrete's hard on your hands, and then just spread it around, and then when you get get your mortar or your grout all set. Just push the rocks into it. So I'll work on that, and we'll check in again when it's closer to being done. Here we are mixing the grout. We've got just a little less than the full bag of grout in the bucket. Do that because if you add too much water, you'll be screwed if you don't have some way to thin out the mix. So saving just a little bit of the grout will save you from that. On the back of the bag, it says to use 2 quarts of water per 25-pound bag. If you use 2 quarts, it'll be way too much water. It needs to be thicker than that. I have here about 1.5 quarts of water. We'll see how much you have left when we're done. Just add it to the bucket. And I got a paddle on a drill to mix it, makes it a lot easier. So that's not bad. You want to make sure that it keeps its shape. If it just spreads out without sticking to anything or holding it shaped like that, it won't work. The rocks won't stick to it. It's just still a little bit dry. Add a little bit more water to it. It'll be real easy if you get to this point. Oh, that looks pretty good. There we are back in the garage. I'm at my, I got 3 of the pieces done. Got the 4th and 5th ones prepped. We got our grout mixed. I still got my rocks laid out where I want them to be so I can place them individually. You can see the grout. I'm wearing gloves to keep my hands from getting too raw, but it holds the shape that you put it into. That's what you want to have. If it just started to spread out on its own and be too thin, it wouldn't work very well. If it's too thick, it'll be really hard to shove the rocks down into it, so there's kind of a fine line there, but that's good. You can shape it and still adhere to what you want it to adhere to. So I'm going to just remove the rock, lay some grout down behind it where I want it to be, cover up any of the lighting diffuser so you won't see it, and then place the rock back. Push it down. Just making sure that all the space is taken up underneath it. Also, the foil here is so that it comes off. The grout's a concrete product, and the concrete won't stick to the foil. On the edge here, foil's right up over the edge of this one. So hopefully the seam will be really tight, so you want to make sure that it's where you want it to be before you get it in there. So those rocks are in, and now we'll just take the rest of the grout, spread it around over the remainder of the lighting diffuser. I guess it's up to your personal preference. I try to keep it from being perfectly flat, make it a little more natural with some high spots and low spots. I'll probably use a little bit more. It's a little bit thinner than I'd like it to be. finished product, or in the mold anyway. Got all the panels put in, all the rocks placed. It's been dried for a few days. Lifted up the panels individually and peeled all the foil off the back. Came out pretty good. You can see where the seams are. You can hide that after you put it in by either gluing on or silicone in some rocks over the top of that. I'm kind of planning to leave it. I think it'll look more natural with a few cracks in it. Part of the reason that they weren't straight vertical and kind of look more like a natural crack. But these rocks are in there pretty solid. You can pick up the whole panel on it and it won't move. And in the back, the top there, that piece is cover the weir. Looks a little bit out of place, but it looks better than the glass overflow. One little spot that didn't come out real well, right here. Didn't quite get it all covered, and there's a little bit of foil stuck in there. I'll have to take that out and dig the foil out of it, and then after we put it in, we'll cover that back up again. Otherwise, it came out pretty good. I'm pretty pleased with it. Now, before we put it in the tank, we'll have to let some of the concrete will change the pH of the water, so we'll have to let it cure. Just soak it in like a plastic child's pool for 4 weeks or so, and let it leach out any of the concrete that might harm the fish. See the separate pieces. That's what it looks like on the back. It's pretty solid, holds its shape real well. All the rocks are in there. Works pretty good. Once we get it all reassembled in the tank, I'll show you how it looks underwater. Till then, thanks for watching. Take care and we'll see you again. Here's the background curing in some water. It's just 2x4 screwed together with some plastic draped over it to make a little pool or lagoon out of it. And then I can just unscrew the 2x4s to make it real easy to drain, add new water back in. But I don't know what it is, but you can see that if whatever this stuff is coming out of the grout of the concrete. So you want to make sure that's all out. It also changes the chemistry of the water. So do some water changes on it until it stops doing that, and then we'll be ready to put it in the tank.